Hello and welcome to class number 33 of the UPSC Mains Answer Writing Initiative. This is the consecutive 33rd day that we are meeting here at 7 p.m. to make away, or to rather take away, the fear of answer writing from your mind. What do we do here? Every single day at 7 p.m. we take our previous year question from the UPSC Mains examination, discuss that question, try to solve that, write an answer to that, and then give your homework at the end of it. Homeworks are usually based on those topics that are in the news. So if you have been reading the news, you are regular with your current affairs, you should be able to answer those questions. I also am happy to evaluate those answers for you. First, you have to subscribe to this channel if you have not done so till now. And then you can join the Telegram channel as well to get PDF of all these lectures. Just in case you are new here, you have no idea where and how to begin with your first answer, I have an advice for you. Go to the very first class of this initiative. I am giving you the link of this entire playlist of this initiative in the description of the video. Click on that link, go to class number 1. In the first class, we had discussed about how to structure an answer, what to write in the main body, what to write in the introduction, how to think about conclusion, what to write in the way forward, etc. So in case you have missed out on that class number 1, please go and see that. That will give you a lot more clarity about how to answer these questions. If you have done so, let's now be ready to face the question for today. Today we are discussing a question from 2022 mains paper GS number 3. The question is based on infrastructure. The question is, why is public-private partnership, that is PPP, required in infrastructure projects? Second, examine the role of PPP model in the redevelopment of railway stations in India. So the question has two parts. First part, they are asking you what is the need to have PPP projects, and second part is about the role of this kind of a model in railway station development. Now I'm sure in infrastructure, in economics, all of you would have read about PPP projects. Basically, huge infrastructure projects where a lot of investment is required. The government does not want to spend all the money alone. So what the government does, they try and ask the private sector companies that, do you want to have a partnership with us? And the government will ask these companies that you come in, you also contribute money, you bring your expertise, you bring your people. Once the project is made, then you can earn from this project. How? For example, like toll tax. A lot of highways that you travel and you will see there's a toll in between. The tolls are mainly way of earning for the company who has spent all that money. So to ensure that they take the money back or they earn the money back with a handsome profit, those toll systems are being built. So this is a PPP model where the government minimizes its risk, the government minimizes its expenditure, and the government brings in the expertise of the private sector. So the first part is, why is it required? We have just discussed, number 1, reduces the government risk factor. Second, reduces the government's capital requirement. Thirdly, the private sector comes in, and it is now proven beyond doubt that private sector in these kind of projects specifically have shown much more efficiency as compared to government enterprises. There have been better services provided. So all these are enough points to emphasize that PPP models are required. Second part of the question is the role of these models in the development of railway stations in India. Now there have been some railway stations that have been built under PPP model. You can give example of this. You can also give an example or elaborate on this point how the railway stations for the past few years have become outdated, how there is a need to update and upgrade their infrastructure, and this is where PPP model with the expertise of the private sector can play a major role, as it has in other parts of the world as well. This is what you'll have to write. If you have some facts or data from the side of the government, this is a brilliant answer where you can actually try and include that, and I'll show you how some of the data can be included here. We'll start with the introduction about a simple definition of PPP models, how they work, 1 or 2 lines. So PPP, public-private partnership, are a mechanism for the government to procure, implement public infrastructure projects and services using resources and expertise of the private sector. So just 1 line definition is good enough, and then we'll jump to the main body. As I said, in the main body, you'll have to write first the benefits that we derive out of the PPP projects. The first one, which is very obvious, is the government gets more investment and doesn't have to spend all the money from its own pocket. Over here, it's always great if we can give some examples or some data from the government. So I have taken example data point from the government itself. The economic survey of 21-22 had said that India needs to spend $1.4 trillion to become a $5 trillion economy. And the government cannot afford to spend all that from its own coffers with so many welfare schemes running. This is where participation and investment in the private sector becomes so critical. Reduces the financial burden on infrastructure. Right now, the financial burden on public investment on infrastructure is about 70%, which is pretty high. It can also help us build world-class infrastructure, as in the case of airports. So, Mumbai airport is a prime example. And in airports, we usually have a model called OMDA. OMDA stands for Operation, Management, Development Agreement. So it's an agreement that the government, for example, would do with a private company that you develop, you are the ones who will operationalize or who will undertake the operations of the airport, and that is how you will recover your money. So for example, it is the Adani Group with which the government had signed this contract of the Mumbai airport. You will see in a lot of bigger cities in India now, the government is inviting more and more private sector companies to build and upgrade the existing airports. While in smaller cities, we still have Airport Authority of India, because in smaller cities, it is difficult for these companies to recover their investment. While in bigger cities, it is much easier because of the high footfall, high traffic. Other benefits also include equitable sharing of risk. As I said, reduction of risk for the government of India. It has been seen in some projects such as in the Bhiwadi franchisee model, where the Discom companies have teamed up with some private companies. It has enhanced customer satisfaction. The government also is able to make the best use of its asset. Asset recycling has happened. Assets of the government have been brought to much better use under national monetization pipeline, where again the private sector is playing a very important role. This is the first part of the answer, the benefits of PPP. Second part of the question was the role of the PPP in the railway station development. Now here it is important to give some examples. Like the first station redeveloped through this model is the Gandhinagar station in Gujarat. Other stations under planning to be redeveloped under this model include New Delhi, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Terminus, including the tier 1, tier 2 cities. They are also being lined up for such projects. You can hear again, right, that expertise and most of the private sectors coming in with state-of-the-art technology can really help elevate the railway stations, because again with increasing population and railways being still the most preferred mode of transportation, the railway stations are under a lot of pressure because of the heavy footfall. And this is where the government of India is pushing infrastructure building in the railway station in the form of the PPP projects. In the conclusion, it will be important to name a specific committee. So whenever you talk about the PPP projects in India, there is an important committee that was formed a few years back to give recommendations on how the PPP projects can be improved. That was the Kelkar committee. In fact, I would advise you highly to please read about this committee now. The same question might not be repeated, but you can still give examples of this committee in some other questions in the future. This was a committee that was formed to give recommendations on how to improve the working of the PPP contracts. So do read about that. This is what we can quote in the conclusion. Recommendations of Kelkar committee should be adopted to address the challenges such as absence of an independent regulator, lack of coordination, etc. I'll tell you one more challenge with the PPP projects. PPP projects are beyond the jurisdiction of the CAG, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. The CAG does not audit PPP projects. So this again can be a shortcoming. If there is a question on the shortcoming of the PPP projects, that is another point that you can include there. So again, the same question will not be repeated, but the point of answering such questions is to get an idea what kind of questions come, and if a similar kind of a question come, what can you understand from this. This is your homework for the day. Climate change has posed significant challenges for the productivity of labor in India, especially in agriculture and construction sectors. Given give an account of the current legal framework in India that govern occupational safety in this regard and suggest reforms to improve this even further. Simple, straightforward question. Just even if you ignore this first statement, the real question starts from here. What is the legal framework, the laws that exist in India about occupational safety for the laborers, especially in the construction sector and agriculture sector, and suggest the reforms that can improve this even further. These kind of questions are tricky, difficult, because if you have not read about labor codes, if you have not read about the OSH or occupational safety hazard, that will be a difficult question to answer. This is your chance to revise, see if you can search for data and then write this answer in your own words. I'll be happy to evaluate this for you if you send it on this email ID. Once again, hit the subscribe button and be regular here. Thank you so much for joining in. Bye bye. Jai Hind.